everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to talk about Project Zero Search of CS50 web programming with Python and JavaScript. So this video solution is made for those who have already completed the assignment and want to have an alternative view about the problem, okay? And if you want a full support from programming expert, check the description below, okay? So basically in the search project, we're gonna design a front end for Google search, Google image search, and Google advanced search. So one thing that is important to know is this CS50 web programming with Python and JavaScript is highly recommended for people that already have some knowledge in programming. So for people that already did CS50, course, for example, okay? Because in CS50 you're gonna learn a little bit about how to code, learn the fundamentals of if and else statements, for loops. So it's really extremely important that you already have this knowledge, or CS50 or CS50 Python. So knowing that, let's start. Basically in here, we're gonna do the same styling and the same outputs for a Google search, okay? So we're gonna work with Google search, Google image search, and Google advanced search. Here we have some background, we're gonna see this in the future, okay? But let's focus on the specification. So basically we have to do all these bullet points that we have in here, okay? So far, this is our project, this is what we have, and this is the only thing we have in our code, okay? One thing that is important to see is for the regular Google search, if I put here, for example, Harvard, and I search, we're gonna actually see the correct page, the correct search for Google for the word Harvard. And why is that? If we take a look in here, do you see this URL? Let me put in here. Do you see the URL? We have google.com search q equals to Harvard. So basically this q here is this input here type text equals to q, okay? So this is the name property, the name attribute we're gonna give to the input. And this q will store whatever we wanna search. So in our case, we're searching for Harvard. So the q attribute here will store the word Harvard. And this is how Google search things over the internet, okay? So this is how Google works. And if we try, for example, here, if I open up google.com and I search here for Harvard, it will appear more things, but this q equals to Harvard is the same. It's pretty much the same, okay? So this is how we're gonna work in our code, all right? So now the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start building our Google search exactly the same as the Google is, okay? So if we go back in here, we can see that Google has this image, we have this input, we have these buttons as well. Okay, this is the home screen. So let's see the specification. Your website must meet the following requirements. Your website should have at least 3 pages, one for regular Google search, this is the index.html, one for Google image search, and one for Google advanced search. On the Google search page, there should be links in the upper right of the page to go to image search and advanced search. On each of the other 2 pages, there should be a link in the upper right to go back to Google search. So basically in here, we're gonna have 3 pages, okay? One for Google, one for Google image, and another for Google advanced. And one thing that we have to do is we have to style this to be pretty similar to this one. But instead of this, in the original Google here, we're gonna have for images and for advanced search. Okay, so let's start. Basically, we can start creating here the nav bar, okay? So here in the body, I'm gonna create a div that will be our nav bar. Okay, and what will be in this div? We're gonna have an unordered list to link to these tags that we have in here. So for example, I'm gonna put here list item and I'm gonna put images, okay? Actually, in this unordered list item, I'm gonna have a tag. The a tag basically will create a hyperlink, okay? So the div will separate this in sessions. The unordered list will create an unordered list. And every unordered list, if we wanna have items in this unordered list, we need the li tag. So in this li tag, for example, if I put here images, I wanna show you how it looks like. And if I refresh here, this is an unordered list with name images. Okay, and I will also want for advanced search. for example. Okay, so right now if we refresh, we have two things in here. Okay, one thing that is important, we're gonna create now one file called styles.css. So here's where we're gonna write the CSS for our pages. Okay, and I'm gonna create an images.html and advanced.html for the other 3 pages we're gonna create. Okay, for images and index, I'm gonna do something pretty simple right now, and in the future we can fix. So one thing that I'm gonna do here first is create a link to our CSS. Okay, so here I'm gonna create a link. So here we have to say link rel equals to style sheet, and we're gonna say what is the file we want to create this relationship. So the name of our CSS file is styles.css. Okay, and we close here the link tag. Then I'm gonna just copy and paste this that we have in here and remove some things in order to, it will be pretty simple in our images. Okay, so everything we have in our body, I'm gonna change to images, for example, and everything we have in our advanced, I will do exactly what we have here in images. I'm gonna put here advanced, just to display if we're able to check. Okay, so far so good. We have this. Now let's create the hyperlink. So how can we click in index? How can we click here in image and be redirected to the images.html? So we have one thing that has name a tag. So for example, if we take a look in here, a tag HTML in W3 schools. This a tag will create a hyperlink, okay, which is used to link from one page to another. So here we use the href attribute, which indicates the link's destination. So this is exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna say a href, we're gonna say the destination, and then we have a message. So I'm gonna put here a href equals, and where I wanna go to. Let me just close here the a tag. Where I want to go to. I want to go to images.html. Okay, so if we refresh in here, for example, now I've created a hyperlink, and once I click, I am redirected to images.html. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing for the advanced search. So I'm gonna create a hyperlink here, a href equals to advanced.html. Okay, and we're gonna be redirected the same way. So if I refresh, now I'm gonna be redirected to the advanced page. Okay, so the hyperlinks I already made. Now let's work with the styling of this part. So now let's start with styling. Like I said, now we have to put this unordered list in the top upper right, and we have to remove this decorator to make it a little bit better. So if you search on W3 Schools again about different list item markers, we're gonna take a look at this list style type, okay? And we can use this in our example here. If we put this list style type equals to none, it will disappear the bullet points that we have in front. Okay, so this will be exactly what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna give here an attribute like class equals to navbar, for example. I'm gonna give this name, and in here I'm gonna do .navbar, and I'm gonna start styling. So the first thing I want to do is using this list style type none. So if I copy and paste, let's see if this works. So if I refresh in here, now we remove the bullet point. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to put everything in the top. So I'm gonna use one property that has named display flags. Okay, and I want to align the items. So display flags, and I want to put a flex direction into a row. I don't want them to be into a column. I want them to be into a row. So now they are in a row. Okay, and we want to put in the right. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna use the justify content, and I'm gonna put flex end. So let's see if this works. The flex end put this everything in the top right, and the good thing, it's responsive, so even if we change the size of our page, it will be in here. But now let's create a margin, right, a space between images and advanced search. So to do this, in here in the list item, I'm gonna give a class equals to, I don't know, navbar item. Here I'm going to change navbar Google, for example, and navbar item Google. Okay, so I'm going to copy this class, and I'm going to paste in both list items, because now I want to give a space between them. And I'm going to change here to navbar Google and here nav item Google. This is the new one that we created. And I'm gonna give a margin of 10 pixels, for example. Okay, so let's save both of them and let's refresh. I think it's navbar item. So if I refresh in here, now we have this space, okay? What if I just want to give a space in the right? So we can work here just in the right, for example. And I refresh, it will have this space only in the right. But I'm going to give a space in both cases, in the X and Y directions. Okay, so this is it for the navbar. We can do some improvements if you want. So now how can we remove this color, for example, this purple color in here? So we can search for CSS links, okay, and we can change the style of it. We can use the A tag for unvisited link, the link the user has visited, the link when the user mouses over it, and the link the moment it is clicked. So we can change the color. For example, let me test in here and show you if we copy this code and paste in here. Okay, once I refresh here my project, it will be green because green is when we already visit the link. If we hover, it will be hot pink because this is something we set, and then when we select, it changed to blue. So what we can do is we can set everything to black, okay, because this is the color they are expecting us to use. Okay, here it will be black again, black and black. Okay, so now if I refresh, it will be black all the time. One thing that we can change as well is the text decorator, because if you see here regularly, it does not contain any text decorator. So in here we can put like text decoration, and we can put this to none. Let's see if this works. If I refresh here, now it is none. Okay, so now it's looking a little bit more similar to what we have here in Google. All right, so let's continue our code. Now we need to add the image. Okay, so this image, actually before we move on, let's implement this navbar in the other pages. And why is that? Because here saying on the other two pages there should be a link in the upper right to go back to Google search. So here we're just gonna do this implementation. I'm gonna put in here this div, okay, but we just want to have one hyperlink. We don't want to have multiple hyperlinks, so we're just gonna have one. Okay, and this hyperlink will redirect to Google search. So I'm gonna put here Google, for example, and now we want to go back to the index.html. So let's see if it's working. If I click here in images, now we have here Google, okay? And we're gonna copy and paste and do the same for the advanced search. Let me copy the div, and we're gonna put the advanced search. Okay, advanced, and I'm gonna put this in here. Okay, and if we click to go back and refresh, if we go to advanced search, we now have Google in here as well. Okay, so basically the first bullet point we did it correctly. Now let's do the next one. So on the Google search page, the user should be able to type in a query, click Google search, and be taken to Google search results for that page. Like on your search bar should be centered with rounded corners. The search button should also be centered and should be beneath the search bar. So basically all this idea of searching is already done for us, okay, like we saw in the beginning of this video. So now let's start styling the way that it's supposed to be. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna add an image in here, like we have here this image of Google. Okay, so I'm gonna search for Google, and I'm gonna click here in images, and we're gonna grab the image of Google. Okay, so for example this one, I'm gonna save. Okay, so we saved here. All right, now we're gonna use the image. So how can we use image? I'm gonna search in here again, image HTML. Okay, and this image HTML will redirect us to, we're gonna see here in the W3 schools. So basically when we're working with image, we need two attributes. Okay, we need the attribute of the source of the image and this out message here, and how this out message works. So basically this is the source, and this out will appear whenever we cannot load the page. For example, if I give an incorrect page for us, this out will be the message, kind of the description of what the image is. Okay, so it's pretty nice if we use this. So here we're gonna say img tag. What will be our source? Our source will be the file we just downloaded, this google.png. So here google.png. Okay, and the out will be equals to, here I'm gonna say Google icon, for example. Okay, and then we can close the image tag. Let's see how it looks like right now. If I refresh, so we have a huge image. Okay, and what if this is not the correct source for the image? It will appear here the message Google icon, but we have the image. Now we can set the height and the width of this page. So how can we check what is the height and the width? If we go back here to our original Google, okay, we can use the developer tool. So you can do Command Shift I or Control Shift I, and you can use this icon here and hover the image, and this will give you the width and the height. How can you do this? For example, here it's saying 272 and 92 for the height. So this will be our numbers in here, okay? 92 for the height and 272 for the width. So let's implement in here. I'm gonna say exactly like we're seeing here in this try it yourself. I'm gonna say height equals to 72, I believe it's 72. Let me double check. 92, sorry. And I will not change the width right now. Let's see how it looks like. So now we have the image of Google in here, but it's not centered, right? So how can we center? We're gonna use a div. I'm gonna create a div in here. Every time we're creating a div, we're splitting things into multiple pieces in sessions, okay? And I'm gonna put this image inside of this div, okay? And in this div, I'm gonna give a class, and I will put center, like class center div, for example. And let's create this class in here. So I'm gonna create here dot center div, and again we're gonna use the display flex. So every time we want to manipulate the div, we need the display flex, and we're gonna use the justify content center to put this in the center. Okay, so if I refresh in here, now it's in the center. Okay, we can also use align items to align the items in the vertical, okay, but in here it won't change much. So this is it what we have right now. Okay, now let's work with the input and the button. So to do the input here, we can use again the developer tools, and if you hover here, it will give us the style for this div. So basically here we have those things. Let me see one thing. We need to round our input, okay? I don't think I'm getting the correct div. This is the correct div. So if you take a look in here, we have display flex, we have the height, background, border, box shadow, border, radius. This is how we're gonna do everything rounded. So in here, we're gonna create a div for our input. Okay, so here for this input type text, I'm gonna create a div. All right, and we're gonna insert this. Actually, I'm not gonna create a div. Let's try it out this way. So here I'm gonna give a class equals to rounded input, for example. Okay, and in here I'm gonna create this class rounded input, and I'm going to copy the style that we're seeing here. So I'm gonna copy basically everything we have in here, because this is the source code that's Google give to us. And if we try it out, now we have this rounded div. Okay, I'm gonna change the width here for something different. The width will be like 300 pixels, and let's see what happens. 584 pixels, and I refresh. Now we have the width that we see in here. Okay, I'm gonna create a margin between the image and the input, like we can see in here. So let's create this margin by adding in here in this div center div, or in this input I'm gonna put a margin top of 10 pixels. Okay, and let's see if I give in here 10 pixels is good, but I think I'm gonna put 30. Okay, so now our input is rounded. Now let's work with the button. So how can we work with the button? We're gonna use in here again this developer tools, and it will give us all the style for the button. So in here we're gonna create a div for the button. I'm gonna use div for the button. I'm gonna put the button here inside, and I'm gonna add the style. And now we're gonna give here a class for this div. I'm gonna give class equals to btn Google, for example, btn Google. Okay, and I'm gonna copy this style here that we're seeing. Okay, I'm not sure if we're gonna put this in the div or in the button, but let's try it out. So here if I put btn Google and I paste every style that we saw, let's see how it looks like in our page. So if I refresh, okay, so it's not gonna be in the div, like I said, I was unsure. So this class BTN Google we're gonna put in our input. This div we're gonna use later, so far it will be in our bottom. And if I refresh, now we have exactly the same bottom as Google. Now we just need to center, so we're gonna use this center div class that we made in here. So center div, and I'm gonna paste in here so far, and it's gonna display here in the middle. So it looks pretty similar, right, from each other, from both classes in here. So now we're going to go to the next part.
If you would like to have full support from Programming Expert via Telegram group and group coaching, check the description below.
One thing that I want to do right now, and in the future we're going to create the logic, is implementing this I am feeling lucky button. So let's already add the I'm feeling lucky button in here. Okay, so it will be again another button, right? So I'm gonna copy in here. It will be a little bit different in the future, the logic, but we're gonna change together. And I'm gonna put here I'm feeling lucky. I'm feeling lucky. Okay, and if I refresh, now it will appear both buttons. So they seem pretty similar, right? So this is it for the Google search. In the future, we're gonna work with them feeling lucky, don't worry. Now let's go to the images search. So now on Google image search page, the user should be able to type in a query, click a search button, and be taken to Google image search results for that page. So what are we gonna do? Here it's our Google image, it's our project, and this is the Google images. So like we can see here, they are pretty similar to each other. The main difference is the button, and we don't have the I'm feeling lucky button. So we're gonna reuse everything we've done in here, okay, after our nav. Alright, so we're gonna put in here after our nav bar, and I'm gonna remove the I'm feeling lucky button. They will be pretty much the same, and we're gonna do some changes. Okay, so if I go to images, now it looks pretty similar. Okay, I'm gonna change here to Google image, the button. Okay, and I'm gonna change the image of this. So I'm gonna put here Google images, for example, and we're gonna download this image to use in our code. So the same process, save image as, I'm gonna put here Google image, for example, and in here, if you take a look, now we have Google images.png. So here I'm gonna change to Google images.png. Okay, so if I refresh, now we have here Google Images. So basically this will be the trick to know that we're doing a image search and not a Google search. Okay, so how we're gonna do this? We have in our code, we are able to add in here an input type hidden. So this input type hidden will be a hidden input. It's not gonna show up in our page. And we can give this name, TBN, and the value ISCH. So here we're gonna create